Good morning. There's Rocky. You can see Rocky sleeping there on his coat. He loves that coat. He does. He's just fast asleep on it. Quite the cat. Quite the cat. Anyway, it's nearly 9 o'clock in the morning. I've been up for hours, but I figured I should make a video. I am having some difficulty breathing today. That will pass, but all the dust I breathed in yesterday wasn't good for me, that's for sure. Yeah, I can't wear a mask. I know people say wear a mask, but I really can't. If I've tried wearing them for woodworking when I was sanding, and I've also tried wearing them for cleaning chicken coops, which was part of a job that I had at one point. And what happens with me is, once I put on a mask, within a couple of minutes, I start to see black spots, and I get weak and dizzy, and my lips and my fingertips go numb. So, I mean, you can't work like that, obviously. So, yeah. So that's why I don't wear a mask. What happened there was, my family doctor in Perth, he's dead now, he lived to be 85 before he died, but my family doctor in Perth was a fellow by the name of Dr. James Tweedy. And Dr. Tweedy, well, let's just say he was not a very good doctor. Anyway, and he was in the back pockets of the drug companies, and he got a lot of money from drug companies. His entire office was furnished by McNeil Pharmaceutical. Everything in there had a sticker on it or a plaque saying provided by McNeil Pharmaceutical. And he used to push antipsychotic drugs really heavy. There were different people in Perth that I know of that had serious problems like cancer and were treated by Dr. Tweedy with antipsychotics. And including my stepmother's father, Harry Foley. Harry Foley was feeling unwell, and he went to Dr. Tweedy. Dr. Tweedy told him he had a mental disturbance, and he needed to take antipsychotic drugs. So Dr. Tweedy gave him antipsychotic drugs. Well, it turns out the man had cancer. And after a year of being treated with antipsychotic drugs, his condition had worsened substantially. So then Tweedy did concede that maybe he had been wrong, and he sent the man to an oncologist in Ottawa, and the oncologist examined him, and the oncologist said, "Why weren't you here a year ago? I could have helped you had you come here a year ago. But I can't really do anything for you now. It's gone too far." This was back in the 1980s. This was back like in 1985 that this occurred. 84, 85. He got sick around 84. He finally got in with an oncologist in 85, and he died in 86. Anyway, I know several stories like that. What happened to me is I got the pneumonia in 1990. I got the pneumonia in the fall of 1990. And I kept going to Dr. Tweedy trying to get some help. And he wanted me to take Prozac, because he said I wasn't really sick, it was all in my head. I was really ill, like I was super ill. And he wouldn't believe me. He said I was putting it on, it was in my head, and I just needed to take Prozac, that I was depressed and I needed to take Prozac. Well, I refused to take the Prozac and kept insisting that I was physically ill. Well, Dr. Tweedy then hung a label of Munchausen syndrome on me, which haunts me to this day. I have an awful hard time now. If I go to a doctor, or if I have to go to the hospital or anything, they don't take me seriously. My arm was busted in 4 places, and I went to the emergency ward back around 2003, and they didn't believe me. I finally managed to force them to take x-rays, and when they took x-rays, they found that my arm was shattered. But they didn't believe me. A nurse was trying to pull my winter coat off me, twisting my busted arm behind my back, and I kept telling her to stop because she was hurting me, and she just said, "Oh, don't be silly. Stop being silly." So that's what I get when I go to the emergency ward or anywhere anyway. It's one of the reasons that I really hate and fear hospitals. Anyway, Dr. Tweedy basically told me that if I wouldn't follow his instructions and take my meds, which he considered to be Prozac, he wanted to put me on that he would let me die. But as far as he was concerned, I could die. And anyway, it was an awful ordeal. I ended up in the hospital twice. That was horrible. I finally found a doctor who would treat my pneumonia, but by that time I was nearly dead by that time, and my lungs were permanently scarred. That same doctor did send me to the respiratory clinic in Ottawa, and they told me that because of my untreated pneumonia, I was now suffering from an adult onset asthma, and that my lungs were permanently scarred. That I have permanent lung damage now because of what was done to me there. Anyway, I tell you all this just to explain why when you see me doing this stuff and I'm not wearing a mask, that's the reason. I can't get enough air through a mask. If there's anything in front of my face at all, even if it isn't right up against my face, sometimes Rocky, when he's cuddling with me, he gets right up against my face. And you may have noticed in some videos I push him off me. And the reason I do that is because I can't breathe. Like his being that close to me actually obstructs my breathing. So if I have something even a few inches from my face, it's enough to block enough. It blocks the airflow enough that I have difficulty breathing anyway. I can't run. I don't have a lot of stamina. I can't run very far at all. I can run a few feet, and then I'm just done, and stuff. And even like all these walks I was doing in the town, pushing a wheelbarrow and stuff, that was taking a lot out of me. You didn't see it in my videos, but I used to have to stop and rest quite often. That's why it would take me, in some cases it took me 2 hours to walk back here from town, when it should really be about a half an hour at the most. But again, you didn't see that in the videos, but there were times it did because I had to keep stopping and resting. So this is what doctors like Dr. Tweedy will do to you anyway. So maybe I'll get sued by Dr. Tweedy's relations or whatever. He's gone now, so he can't sue me. Maybe I'll get sued for saying this stuff, but I don't have anything anyway, so, I mean, let them sue me. I really don't care. I know several people that were killed by him or hurt by him in different ways. When he got sick with cancer, of course, I hadn't had anything to do with him in decades at that point. But when he got sick with cancer, a girl that had lived in my building when I lived above the Royal Bank in Perth, a letter arrived for her, but she had already moved out. Her and her sister actually had lived beside me, and their apartment had burned down, is what had happened. But a letter arrived for her, and it was from Dr. Tweedy. I could see it said from the office of Dr. James Tweedy. So I took it to her. I knew where she had gone, so I took the letter to her. And she opened it up in front of me and read it, and she says, "Oh," she says, "that's too bad. Dr. Tweedy has cancer and he's dying, and so he's closing up his practice." And I said, "Well, it's too bad he's got cancer. But," I said, "really, that man should have retired right out of medical school." I said, "He would have saved a lot of lives had he never practiced. So I said, in a way, it's a relief to hear that he's retiring, even if it is under both circumstances. I said, he's going to save more lives by getting out of the doctor business than he ever saved by being in it. And she said, "Well, I'm going to miss him." And I said, "Why would you miss him?" I said, "What good was he? Why would you miss him?" And she says, "Well, because I could get any pill I wanted. Like I just go in there and tell him what I wanted, and he'd give it to me." And I said, "Well, that's not a responsible doctor. That's not a doctor who has your best interest at heart, if he would do that." And she agreed, but still, she said, "Still, I'm going to miss him. It was just I could go in there and get anything I wanted." So anyway, that's well, that's Dr. Tweedy anyway, and that's the reason I'm in this shape I'm in now, is because of the untreated pneumonia, which is thanks to him anyway. Not that he gave me pneumonia, because he didn't. I'm not saying that. It's not his fault I got the pneumonia, but he refused to treat me, other than that he wanted to treat me with antipsychotics and antidepressants, which, when you think about it, Prozac was a new drug at the time. I remember he said, "It's all the rave." That's the way he put it. "Oh, it's new." He said, "It's all the rave." And I said, "I want no part of it." I said, "I'm not depressed or psychotic." I said, "I'm sick." "It's all in your head," he said. "You think you're sick, but it's because of your depression that you think that." Well, it turned out I was sick. So, anyway, and I didn't have depression. So, I really don't have any mental illness like that. I know I seem kind of crazy, and maybe I am kind of crazy, but I'm not mentally ill. I think being crazy actually keeps me from being mentally ill, in a way. I mean, it's sort of like that. Remember the old show MASH? For older people like me, you remember MASH. And in the show MASH, they used to say that those doctors that were stationed over in Korea in that mobile army surgical hospital, MASH, and during the Korean War in the early 50s, they used to say that it was by being crazy that they avoided insanity, having to live under the conditions they were living under and having to deal with so much death, and seeing young men blown to pieces and things like that, and the trauma the toll that took on those people. They used to say that they avoided insanity by being crazy. Anyway, well, that's kind of what I've done. But because I've had a lot of trauma, I've seen a lot of things that nobody should ever have to see. And that's how I've coped with it, is by being crazy. Basically, by having an off-color sense of humor. By doing crazy things, like wearing a chicken hat, or, whatever. That's how I cope. I don't use drugs. I don't use alcohol. I gotta cope somehow, and that's how I do it. I cope a lot by working at different things. I find that keeping occupied is good. My old friend Tom Kerr used to tell me that a man should never have too much time to think, and I think he was right about that. So I try to keep busy in different ways, doing different jobs, and I also have this off-color sense of humor that often offends people and that often causes people to kind of look at me and say, "What's his deal?" Or whatever. But again, it's a way I cope, is what it is. Because if not for that, I probably would be insane. I'd probably be in need of antipsychotic drugs if I wasn't that way, really. Because, I mean, even the things that I've shared on some of my videos here that I've experienced and that I've seen, I know a lot of that stuff even is disturbing. But there's a lot of other stuff I don't talk about. Like, I've seen things that I actually can't talk about because I'll fall apart if I do. You know, I actually can't get through the story. I'll break down and I won't be able to speak. I'll just be sitting here crying like a, just blubbering like an idiot. That's all. So there's a lot of stuff I literally cannot talk about because my speech leaves me, if I try to. And so this is how I cope. And, yeah, anyway, I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, I guess, but I'm not insane. I guess that's the thing. I'm not in need of medication. That's all. I don't need to be medicated. I just need to be allowed to cope in my own way. That's all. And my own way is really pretty harmless as long as I'm left alone. I mean, if I'm not, the only time I've ever posed a danger to anyone is if they were posing a danger to me first. I don't like being in those situations. I don't want any part of that. So, the times in my life when I was a danger to another human being, that person was a danger to me already. Or that person had really done something really serious to me before I became a danger to them. And so, like I say, I'm not a psychotic person. I don't just become a danger I'm not a danger to other people in a general sense. I'm not hearing voices. I'm not hallucinating. I'm not delusional. I'm not depressed. I've never had suicidal ideations, which, again, it's on my medical records that I'm suicidal, but I'm not. That was a lie told by Dr. Tweedy when he was trying to push the Prozac on me. I don't imagine that I'm ill when I'm not. Again, the Munchausen's thing was him mad at me because I wouldn't take, as he said, my meds, because he wanted me to take Prozac, and so on. Anyway, that's the bottom line. I had an elderly aunt. She was actually a great aunt of mine, my grandpa's sister, Verna. Verna was a wonderful old lady. But Verna loved Dr. Tweedy, because in her old age, Dr. Tweedy gave her these pills. They were kind of happy pills, I guess, and he told her to drink a bottle of house wine every day. So she could be drunk and high every day under doctor's orders. So she loved Dr. Tweedy anyway. Dr. Tweedy could do no wrong, in her eyes. Of course, Dr. Tweedy, like I say, I think he ended up killing her too, although it's hard to say really. She had undiagnosed cancer for a long time while his patient, and ultimately it took her life. But then she was elderly, so whether anything could have been done, I really don't know. But the thing is, it wasn't even diagnosed until it was too far gone. Even if she'd been a younger person, by the time it was diagnosed, nothing could have been done. And he spent all that time that she was complaining of the symptoms of breast cancer, treating her as a psychiatric patient, basically, and giving her happy pills and telling her to drink house wine. So, but still, she was pretty happy with the house wine situation anyway. So there was that. Alrighty, that's it for now. Yeah, that's it for now anyway. I will feel better. I just got to allow all the dust that I sucked in yesterday to clear out of my system. And that's going to take some time, that's all. I've been down this road before. I try not to do these kinds of jobs, but in this case it was a necessity. Because I need that truck. I need that space open for the truck to be of use to me. And I can't afford to hire somebody to open it up, so it was me that had to do it, and I did it, and like I say, I'll cough up all this crap that I sucked in yesterday, and I'll be fine. Alright, that's it for now. We'll talk later.